Welcome to the Readout Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Welchins, and today we're talking about the book that just might wreck your life. I mean, completely destroy it. In a great way, of course. At Readout, our belief is that to lead out, you have to read out. To read out means to read well and to read broadly. Almost every great leader in history has been a reader, and we wholeheartedly agree with Margaret Fuller when she said, "Today a reader, tomorrow a leader." Reading is not optional to leadership. It's not the side dish. It's the main course. And in order to become a great leader, you have to dig in. But here's the problem. We here at Readout know that in this day and age, time and energy is hard to come by. My hope with this podcast is to save you that time and energy and bring you reviews of the best book that can have an impact in your life right now. Then I want to teach you to get the most out of these books so that you can become the leader you've always dreamed of being faster than you've ever imagined. This week, we're kicking off the Readout Podcast with a series called Gateway Books. We put a lot of work into selecting the books that will help you develop a serious book addiction, if not cataclysmic, full-blown book dependency. To be really straightforward, our hope with this series is to get you hooked. Can you imagine a life where your first inclination in your free time wasn't to pick up the remote or your phone? I couldn't either. But the books we'll be reviewing over the next 4 weeks might just change everything for you. And I hope by the end of this series, you can't control yourself. I hope you lost control and all you can do is feed the addiction. When I started my first job in my early 20s, I found leadership frustrating. I had this picture in my head of the type of leader I wanted to be, but I seemed hamstrung. I couldn't quite get there. I was short on time, short on energy, and the last thing I wanted to do was read. The responsibilities of leadership were weighing down on me, and I didn't know if I could make time to read. I knew vaguely that reading was quote unquote what leaders do. I just didn't know if that applied to me too. Here's what I think some of the most common problems young adults are facing when it comes to reading. Number one, we don't see a need. One of our biggest problems is that we have time. We're young. The need for reading is important, but it's not urgent, so it always gets shoved to our margins. I'm sure some of you guys have felt that before. Number two, we don't have time. On the flip side of that, technology was supposed to result in less work. I mean, think about it. My laptop today has more computing power than the world did in the early 60s. Shouldn't we be reaping the benefits of a society where we have less to do? Aldous Huxley said it perfectly when he said, "Technological progress has merely provided us with more efficient means for going backwards." In other words, we have more work than ever and less time to spare. How are we supposed to make time to read? We don't have time. Number three, we don't view ourselves as leaders. And this one, guys, is a tragedy. We follow so many people. We strive to be like influencers, but we don't view ourselves as leaders. This creates a world in which reading really isn't that necessary. We'll just let other people tell us what to do. The world needs you to lead. That's the truth. In order to get reading, we have to see ourselves as leaders. The great news is that you have unbelievable potential to lead if you'll tap into it. Number four, we limit ourselves. In life, mindset is everything. If you don't believe you can grow to be a leader, or for that matter, a reader, here's what will happen. You won't. We have to get our mind right if we're going to grow into our potential, and we have to focus on believing that we can be leaders, because you can. These are some of the major roadblocks on the road to becoming a reader and then a leader. As I was thinking through the book to kick off this podcast, to be honest, it was easy. In my early 20s, I was sitting at a staff meeting when a guy I really respected was reading this book. Its title was intriguing. I asked him if he'd recommend it, and he said 1,000%. So I did what everyone else would do. I bought the book. I bought it used, of course. I didn't pay the full price. Go to Amazon, pay $2. And to be totally honest, I was not expecting to read the whole thing. I just kind of wanted to put it on my bookshelf to display it, maybe read a couple pages of it and look the part. But when I picked it up, it truly wrecked my world. And I hope it'll wreck yours too. Even in the title, you know it has some serious potential to change things. It's called Burn Your Goals. And it's written by two guys, Joshua Medcalf and Jamie Gilbert. Maybe two guys you've never heard about before, but two guys you need to get to know. This was the book that started it all for me. And here's why. With surgical precision, Joshua and Jamie take a scalpel to our excuses and obstacles to leading, and they destroy them. They're brutally honest and won't take no for an answer. Through this book, I found two humble leaders who believed in me and my leadership potential, and not only that, but gave me the road to run on. It's littered with leadership, mindset training, excuse breaking, wisdom. Short chapters make it an easy read, but to be honest, you won't be able to stop. Here's some leadership gold by them. Listen to this passage from their book. In the chapter, "This activity transforms more lives than anything else," they say this: if you really want to get ahead in the world, never read. I saw a stat the other day that 46% of college graduates never read another book. Incredible! My heroes. If you want to maximize your potential, then stay far away from the wisdom people have garnered through lifetimes of experience and study. The best thing to do is just to watch Charlie Bit My Finger on YouTube and pretend our love of consuming all the wrong things is going to get our country out of our over $16 trillion in debt. We are all guilty of it sometimes. It is so much easier to consume than to create. It is so much easier to watch than to read. It is so much easier to spend than to save. It is so much easier to build a fantasy football team than to build up a youth football team and equip them with the foundation of excellent life skills. I believe reading is one of the most underrated activities in the world. End quote. Man, these guys are amazing. And as you guys pick up this book, I want to give you guys some shortcuts to greatness. Every week we do this podcast, we're going to give you 2 or 3 things from each book that will give you the most bang for your buck. If you can just focus in on them and really get these things out of the book, they will change your life. And this week's shortcuts to greatness are this. Number 1, one theme Joshua and Jamie push throughout the book is the idea of controllables. They make a big push to focus on things that you can control versus focusing on goal setting. This can be life-altering. Goals are great, but what I've learned through this book is that controllables are the real money maker. They're the gas in the engine. Without them, you'll most likely never hit your goals. When they mention controllables, take it in. And the chapter to check out there is Control the Controllables and Leave the How to Him. Check out that chapter. The number 2 shortcut to greatness is this: mindset. We've all heard it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it. Joshua and Jamie would take that one step further and say it's not what happens to you, but how you think about what happens to you that makes all the difference. To become great leaders, you need a great mindset, and they help you focus on developing a leader's mindset, something that's so important in this day and age. Check out the chapter, Adopting a Growth Mindset Hurts, for great stuff. The number 3 shortcut into greatness is reading. Joshua and Jamie will hammer home the importance of reading, and for good reason. Anytime they mention reading, you should tune in and focus. Check out the chapter, This Activity Transforms More Lives Than Anything Else. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but this will really get your reading habit kicked into gear. If these guys won't get you reading on the daily, I don't know what will. If you're looking to become a reader, please look no further than Burn Your Goals. This book has impacted my life in so many ways, and the most important of which is to make me a lifetime reader. They even give you a book list, of which I've read many, to get you started on your full-blown book habit. Do yourself a favor, wreck your life, and buy a copy of Burn Your Goals. You'll thank me later. As we continue this series, we're going to bring you 3 more books that we believe will help you become a devoted book junkie. Join me next week as we reveal book number 2 of Gateway Books. Here's what I want to remind you guys of. Life is too short for bad books. That's the truth. To see what I'm reading right now, follow me on my Goodreads profile at www.goodreads.com/Jake Welchins. This podcast is performed and written by myself, Jake Welchins. Podcast production by the one and only Logan Bonjean. See you next time on Read Out.